Our keynote speaker for our closing session had a childhood dream of being in the Army. I'm going to let him tell you his story. Please welcome Mr. Mark Potter from Canandaigua, New York.
Thank you.
Go for it, babe.
Yeah.
Here's your water.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and for me to share my story with you. Like Becky said, it was my dream as a young teenager to join the military. In school, I wrestled and played football and was like any other high school student, athlete. My junior year, I joined the delayed entry program, knowing what I wanted to do, and that was to be a soldier in the United States Army. 3 weeks after graduation, I found myself in Fort Benning, Georgia, going through basic training like all enlisted members do of the service. Following that was 5 weeks of advanced infantry training, followed by 3 weeks of airborne school, knowing full well that I wanted to jump out of airplanes for a living. Hoo-ah. Right on. So, 16 weeks of training in Fort Benning, Georgia, learning a lot in the skills of an infantryman. Duty station was sent to Vicenza, Italy, where I was assigned to the 3rd Battalion, 325th Airborne Infantry Regiment, part of the Airborne Battalion Combat Team, which is the only airborne force in Europe. There it was where I learned to be proficient as an M60 machine gunner for a year and a half. Did multiple airborne ops. Most of our jumps were at night. C-130 jumps, Huey jumps, CH-47 jumps. Some fun jumps and a lot of work, a lot of busting your ass. We did a lot of cold weather training in the Alps, where you would hump a 60, 80-pound rucksack on your back through 3 feet of snow with snowshoes on, carrying your weapon, practicing your assaults and raids and ambushes, all the while to be a proficient soldier for the best fighting army in the free world. Hoo-ah! Right on. After a year and a half of being on the M60, I got sent to the scout platoon, recon, which is pretty much the best of the battalion. And there we did a lot of rappelling and rock climbing and road marching, river crossings, and learned the art of being able to gather enemy information without being detected. That is the whole purpose of a recon scout. Well, once I was in the recon platoon, Desert Storm started, Desert Shield, then Desert Storm. And we received orders to go to Iraq, which we were up for. I mean, we trained hard for this. That's our job. We want to go take it to the enemy. And we flew into Turkey. We didn't do an airborne assault into country. We flew in on a C-5, and we humped in over the northern border of Iraq, from Turkey into northern Iraq. My squad, made up of 5 guys, got sent out on a 5-day mission into northern Iraq. And we got inserted on a hilltop. When I say hilltop, I mean a mountain. Helicopter insertion. 5 guys, enough food and water and ammunition to last 5 days and nothing more, and then we'd be brought back. So we get inserted on top of this hilltop from a helicopter. Well, the helicopter has to hover because it's a very steep mountain. So in order to properly get on the ground, you have to throw your rucksack down. It would land, and you need to jump out with your weapon, get on the ground, secure the perimeter. One of the guys, when he was jumping out of the aircraft, or before he jumped out of the aircraft, he took his ruck, and he was so jacked up, he threw it off the mountain. Well, funny as it may seem, there's a lot of sensitive data that we carry, maps, binos, not to mention his food and water in a place that's hotter than hell. So the mission is to be completed. The rucksack is secondary. So we go about our mission, gathering enemy information without being detected. At one time, we, near the end of the mission, my squad leader says, why don't you 3 of you guys go see if you can recover that rucksack because of the sensitive materials that are in it. We really don't want them falling in enemy hands for any reason. So myself, my other 2 roommates, which were Jay Humphreys and Lauren Yeager, great soldiers. We went out to recover this piece of lost equipment. Well, in doing so, there was a minefield that was near our observation post. And we knew that was there. We were well aware of that minefield. You could see the surface landmines. You could see old rusty tripwire. And I'm assuming that was from the Iraq-Iran war, believe it or not. So we go out at the crack of dawn, and we go out for 4 or 5 hours, trying to recover this piece of lost equipment. Well, with no luck, it was time to head back. The material wasn't found. In coming back, Jay's walking point. I'm 10 meters behind him, and Yeager's 10 meters behind me. So, walking back, it's a little after 11 in the morning, and we're near our observation post where my squad leader and my other scout friend was. And Jay puts his hand up. He says, "Hold up." And I mean, you're jacked. Your weapon's up. Your eyes are going everywhere. What's going on? He says, "We're in the minefield." It's all right. Let's get out of here slowly and safely. Get out of this thing. Well, 2 steps later, Jay had found a landmine. And I was looking to the left, and as my head turned around to the 12 o'clock position, this thing went off. And it was in slow motion. Now, I've heard stories of people saying things go in slow motion. I've never seen it until this. I'm flying through the air, and my M16 is locked and loaded. And I remember flying through the air thinking to myself that I don't want an accidental discharge of my weapon shooting one of my buddies. So I throw down my M16 as I'm flying through the air, and I land on the ground by some razor wire in the middle of this minefield. And I'm laying on the ground like this, and I can't hear anything, and I see blood all over my hand. I'm not sure what really happened. And out of my peripheral vision, I see this huge cloud of black smoke, huge, and I couldn't hear anything. Well, I guess it was at that point I wish I had been knocked out. And I wasn't. Because when my hearing kicked in, I heard my buddy scream for his life. To the top of his lungs. Please, God, don't let me die. So, I'm hearing Jay scream for his life. And I want to get over to help him. And I tried to crawl to him, and I wasn't getting anywhere. Well, at that time I looked down and saw my BDUs, which is your camouflage pants, battle dress uniform, shredded, my right knee hanging out of my leg, and covered in blood and multiple fragments. Well, once I saw the damage, then I felt the damage, and it hurt like hell. And now I'm sitting there screaming to God, please, God, don't let me die. So because of where this minefield was located towards our forward position, our observation post, the other two guys heard the blast, saw the smoke, come running in the minefield to do immediate first aid on Jay and myself. Before they had got there, my third recon scout, who was behind me, Jaeger, caught 2 pieces of shrapnel in his forearm, and it looked like he'd seen a ghost. He sat down on a boulder and just stared at us. And I yelled at him in not so nice words to go get some help. Well, Jay's laying there with his both legs blown off, his large intestines hanging out of his guts, his left eye blown out of his head, amongst other shrapnel wounds. And McClure and Cayazo come and put tourniquets on the legs and pop smoke, call for a dust off or a medevac. And 15, 20 minutes later, the bird comes, hovers in the safe area, sits down. They throw Jay on. He's worse wounded, of course, than myself. And Jaeger rode back with us. From there, we were sent to a field hospital in northern Iraq. Something like you would see the TV show on MASH, really. And there I was jacked up on morphine, pretty good, of course, as I'm sure you can imagine. Jay had gone in for amputation, and I didn't see him again for years after that. But it was during that time in this field hospital, they had brought me into a surgery for shrapnel debriefing. I'm laying in this table. I was under anesthesia, and I come through on the table as they're pulling the shrapnel out of my legs. And I hear this ting, ting. What the hell is that? Where am I? It's the shrapnel, putting it into a metal jar, a metal pan. And I go, wow, I start freaking out on the table. Well, next thing you know, I'm back out. I'm out like a light. Probably a good thing, I'm thinking. So, from there, I was sent to Incirlik, Turkey, an Air Force hospital. And that was just a layover until I got to Wiesbaden, Germany, where in Wiesbaden I went under several knee operations between both legs. The healing of the wounds was pretty painful in itself, really. They'd soak in a hot tub, basically, to let the water clean out the wounds. It's very, they're very dirty and whatnot. And then they would pack the holes in your legs with gauze. Your shrapnel holes in your legs are probably a good inch deep anyways, amongst the other stuff, And I had received some great care from these Air Force medics. Phenomenal care. Whoa. Well, about this time, back in Iraq, now this has been probably 3 weeks after our explosion had happened, I have another brother in the recon platoon. His name was Lars Chu, who was 20 years old, from Denver, Colorado, who was navigating through a minefield. He was taking a Marine somewhere. I didn't quite get the whole story, but Lars was leading a Marine to another forward objective, duty outlook post, I should say. And Lars had stepped on a landmine. Well, Lars lost both his legs as well. He went to that same field hospital and met with the preacher. And, he had great spirits, but a blood clot had found his way to his heart and killed him. So, after receiving care in Wiesbaden, Germany for a month and a half, it basically had to learn how to walk again, a few more knee surgeries. I was sent back to Vincenza, Italy, where my duty station was. I met with the doctors, and they said, "Son, you can't jump anymore." Well, if I can't jump, get me out. I said, "I came here to do one thing, that's to be a paratrooper." I said, "You get me out." Some time went by. They got me out. And there was no way I could have jumped again or road marched or humped an 80-pound, 100-pound rucksack. They just couldn't do it. My knees wouldn't have allowed me. So I get discharged from the military. I come home and bounced around a few jobs for a while before I landed on my feet at the VA in Canandaigua, New York, which is a great hospital. And it was there that I sought help medically and mentally. As it turns out, I needed some mental help. Who knew, right? Joe Tasham might know about that. I come across a car accident one day. I'll make this real short on you. And I was the first person on the scene. And I figured, well, if it was me in that car, I would want someone to stop. And so I did, and it was a fatal accident. And there was a lot of blood and death. And I didn't think nothing of it. Well, that night when I went to bed, it brought all kinds of things back. So I said, I got to go talk to somebody about this. This is not right. I made an appointment to go speak with a counselor in the PTSD clinic at Canandaigua. His name was Jim Robinson. Great guy, Vietnam vet. Been there, done that. He could relate to what I was saying. And when I told him, I broke down and cried like a little girl, This is fine. So this is not me. So he said, "Son, you have PTSD." I said, "Oh, what the hell are you talking about?" He said, "Oh." So as it was, there I had sought treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder as well as medical treatment. And I continue today to seek treatment. I mean, I'm a little more emotional now. I have a shorter fuse than I used to. I mean, it doesn't take much to make me snap. even though I try and keep that in check. But it's the care that I receive at the VA, and this is not just in Canandaigua, this is in Syracuse and in Buffalo as well. It's phenomenal. And yeah, you guys deserve a round of applause. The care that I receive there and continue to receive there is, by and large, the best that anyone could ask for. And they've been there for me and my family, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you folks for all that you do for the veterans, because the guys that put their lives on the line for our freedoms, they need people like you to take care of them when they come home. I'd like to thank you all. Becky, thanks for bringing me. Have a good day.